What kind of father sells his own daughter for the price of 3 horses and a crate of meat? This question haunted Clarabeth Morrison the moment she learned the truth about her life. She had overheard it through the thin wall of her small room in Devil's Creek. At 19, she moved like a ghost in her own home, a pale figure with snow-white skin, silver hair, and soft pink eyes that made people whisper behind her back. Her father, Jacob Morrison, never called her by her name. To him, she was a curse, a burden, a reminder of the wife he lost the night she was born. On that cold Colorado night, Clarabeth sat frozen in her bed as she heard him bargaining. 3 pack horses, a crate of preserved meat, 2 silver dollars. That was her worth. And the man buying her wasn't even the one who wanted her. He was only a messenger, a trapper named Ezra Kane, taking her into the high wilderness to someone called Caleb McKinnon. When morning came, Jacob shoved her out of the cabin with a final hateful sneer. "A wild man is a fitting match for a creature like you. Maybe the mountains will finish what your mother's death started." He didn't look back. He didn't need to. His heart had never held room for her. Ezra Kane stood by his wagon, waiting. He didn't smile. He didn't frown. He simply gestured for her to climb aboard, and Clarabeth obeyed because there was nothing left for her in Devil's Creek, except the echo of her father's contempt. The journey was silent. Ezra drove the wagon through sharp mountain paths and across stretches of pine forest. The sun hurt her eyes, even under the shade of a borrowed hat. She kept her head down, and her hands wrapped around her knees, trying to make herself small. She had learned long ago that being noticed only brought pain. Ezra wasn't cruel, but he wasn't kind either. He gave her water and a share of dried meat. He kept his distance, his gaze always somewhere else. She was cargo, something to be delivered, not a person following her destiny. For 3 days they traveled like that, 2 people sharing a wagon but living in separate worlds. On the 3rd night, they camped beneath a rock formation shaped like a sleeping bear. The air was cold, the fire warm, and the stars spread across the sky like a river of diamonds. Clarabeth watched them quietly, thinking she had never seen a world so wide or so alive. Devil's Creek had always felt like a cage. Out here, even the darkness felt freer. Ezra handed her a tin cup of coffee. He watched her for a moment, then finally spoke. "You're bound for Timber Ridge. That's where Caleb lives." The name landed heavy in her chest. Caleb, the mountain man she was being delivered to. A stranger, a widower, Ezra added. He'd lost his wife and their baby 4 years ago in a brutal winter. "You should know something," Ezra said, stirring the fire with a stick. "He asked for you." Clarabeth's head snapped up. "Why?" she whispered. Ezra's eyes softened, just a little, as he studied her pale hair in the firelight. "Mountain folks see things different," he said. "Town people see a curse. Men like Caleb, they see the rare things of this world as gifts." Clarabeth froze. Ezra continued, his voice steady. "The runner came to my post months back." Caleb asked about the pale woman in Devil's Creek. Said he'd heard stories. "Your skin, your hair, to him that's not shame. It's a sign from the Great Spirit. He believes what's rare is sacred." Clarabeth blinked, stunned. "He doesn't think he's buying a cursed bride," Ezra said quietly. "He thinks he's been sent an angel." The word hit her harder than any blow Jacob had ever given her. Angel. Her? The girl who lived like a ghost in her father's shadow? Clarabeth wrapped her blanket tighter around her shoulders. She couldn't sleep. Not because she feared what waited for her, but because she didn't know how to accept even the idea of kindness. The next day, as they climbed higher into the mountains, she felt something shift inside her. The air grew cooler. The trees grew taller. The world felt cleaner, as if washed by the sky itself. Then the path widened, and she saw it. A hidden valley, green and alive, tucked between towering granite peaks. A ribbon of clear water ran through the center, and a thin line of smoke rose from a cabin near the trees. Horses grazed lazily in the meadow. Birds called to each other. Sunlight danced off the water. Clarabeth stared, breath caught in her throat. A place like this couldn't belong to the same world she was born into. Ezra brought the wagon to a stop near a small garden fence. Then a man stepped out of the cabin. Caleb McKinnon walked toward them with the steady, unhurried strength of someone who belonged to the land itself. He was tall, broad-shouldered, dressed in simple buckskin. His skin was bronzed by sun, his dark hair tied back, his face rugged and handsome, carved by 4 years of solitude and grief. But his eyes saw her, not with disgust, not with fear, but with something that looked like quiet wonder. He stepped forward, stopping a respectful distance from her. His voice, when he spoke, was deep and gentle. "Snow Angel." The name wrapped around her like the first warm breeze after winter. He didn't flinch at her pale skin. He didn't look away. He called her something beautiful. For a moment, Clarabeth couldn't breathe. Caleb didn't touch her. He didn't rush her. Instead, he turned and pointed to a small cabin of her own, built strong and warm under the pines. "This will be your home," he said softly. "You will have peace here." He nodded once and walked away, giving her space instead of demands. Clarabeth stepped inside the little cabin, soft rugs, clean blankets, fresh water, wild flowers in a clay jar. A home. Her home. For the first time in her life, Clarabeth felt something strange and fragile blooming in her chest, hope. Clarabeth woke the next morning to the soft sound of birds outside her window. The air inside her cabin was cool and clean. For a moment, she didn't move. She lay still, listening, trying to understand the strange feeling inside her chest. It was safety. She had never felt it before. For 4 days, she stayed mostly inside the cabin, stepping out only to breathe the mountain air or watch the valley from a distance. Caleb kept his word. He did not enter her space. He did not speak unless she showed she was ready. But she could feel him nearby each day, chopping wood, tending horses, working in the garden. His presence was steady, warm, and patient. Every morning she woke to find a small gift at her doorstep. A purple wildflower, a sprig of red paintbrush, a soft blue blossom from the high meadow. No note, no pressure. Just a quiet reminder that someone saw her. By the 5th morning, she found herself waiting for the knock that never came. Instead, the flowers appeared like magic. And though she tried to convince herself it meant nothing, her heart began to warm to the kindness she had never known. On the 6th day, a woman approached her cabin holding a bowl of warm stew. She was older than Clarabeth, with kind brown eyes and a gentle smile. She stopped a few feet away and held out the bowl. Clarabeth hesitated, then stepped forward and took it. "Sarah," the woman said, pointing to herself. Clarabeth pointed to her own chest. "Clarabeth." Sarah nodded with a smile, then said softly, "Snow Angel." The name made Clarabeth's throat tighten. She whispered a thank you, and Sarah nodded again before walking away. From that day on, Sarah visited almost every afternoon. Sometimes she brought food. Sometimes she simply sat near the cabin and worked with her hands. Clarabeth began to speak a little more each day. Small words, small steps, but each step carried her further from her father's darkness. Sarah's young nephew Tommy often followed her. The boy was sweet but sickly, carrying a deep cough that hurt to hear. One afternoon, Clarabeth remembered a plant her mother once used, mullein leaves. She had not spoken of her mother in years, but the memory came back with surprising force. She gathered the leaves, crushed them, mixed them with a bit of lard, and walked to Sarah's cabin with trembling hands. She showed the salve, pointed to Tommy's chest, and tried her best to explain without words. Sarah looked at her for a long moment. Then she nodded. She trusted her. The next morning, Tommy ran to her cabin with a bright grin. His cough was almost gone. Sarah hugged Clarabeth so tightly she almost couldn't breathe. The warmth of that hug reached deeper than any winter cold ever could. After that, people began to visit her with small questions about plants, sickness, or even how to mend something she had shown Sarah. The valley accepted her gently, slowly, one kind act at a time. Clarabeth began a garden behind her cabin. She planted herbs she recognized, flowers she loved, and new plants she discovered. Seeing life grow under her care felt like healing something inside her she didn't even know could be healed. And always, Caleb watched from a distance, respectful, patient, careful. One evening, he approached her cabin alone. The sky was stained with purple and gold as the sun dipped behind the mountains. "Snow Angel," he said softly, "will you walk with me?" Her heart jumped. She nodded. He led her along the stream to a quiet pool hidden by tall pines. The water was still, reflecting the sky like glass. They stood in silence for a long time. Finally, Caleb spoke. "Your garden," he said. "It brings life back to this valley. You have a gift." Clarabeth looked at her hands. "I just like to see things live," she whispered. Caleb nodded, his voice low and steady. "My wife, Rebecca, had that same gift. When she died, the valley felt empty. For years, I felt empty too." She looked at him. For the first time, she saw not only strength but pain. Quiet, deep pain he carried alone. "I heard stories about you," he continued. "About the girl with the snowskin. People said you were cursed. But I did not hear a curse. I heard about a flower growing through stone." Clarabeth swallowed hard. "No one has ever seen anything in me except shame." Caleb stepped closer. Slowly, gently, he placed his hand over hers. "A man who sees only shame in a rare and beautiful thing is blind," he said. "Your father was blind." The simple truth hit her with such force that tears filled her eyes. No one had ever dared call her father wrong. No one had ever spoken to her with such care. They walked back in silence, but it was a different silence now. A warm one, a hopeful one, a silence that held promise. As the weeks passed, Clarabeth and Caleb grew closer. He taught her the paths of the forest. She taught him words from books she remembered. They laughed sometimes. Soft, hesitant laughter that grew stronger each day. One evening, under the bright silver of the rising moon, Caleb brought her a carved necklace made of wood and river stones. "Snow Angel," he said, his voice warm and full of feeling. "You brought life back to this valley, to me. I wish for you to share my cabin, my days, my heart. Be my wife." Clarabeth touched the necklace with trembling fingers. She had been sold once. She had been treated like an object her whole life. But now, someone was giving her a choice, a real choice. "I choose you, Caleb," she said softly. "With all my heart." They were married in the clearing that same evening. The small mountain community gathered. Sarah cried with joy. Old Samuel blessed them. The valley glowed with the firelight of celebration. For the first time, Clarabeth felt not like a ghost, not like a curse, not like cargo. She felt like a woman who belonged. But peace never lasts forever. Late one afternoon, a rider came racing into the valley with panic on his face. He spoke quickly to Caleb. The air changed. The quiet warmth of the day turned sharp with fear. Caleb walked straight toward Clarabeth. 12 soldiers are riding up the trail," he said. "They have a guide, a tall man with a black beard." Clarabeth's blood ran cold. There was only one man it could be. "My father," she whispered. Caleb placed his strong hand on her shoulder. "You are not alone. You will not face him as the frightened girl he once knew. You will face him as my wife." Clarabeth lifted her chin. Her fear trembled, then steadied. "I won't hide," she said. "Not anymore." The valley prepared for the confrontation, and Clarabeth waited for the pass she had tried to outrun. The sun dipped low behind the peaks, casting long shadows across the valley as Clarabeth stood beside Caleb. The air felt tight, as if the mountains themselves were holding their breath. The men of the valley formed a silent wall behind them. Their rifles rested in steady hands, not raised but ready if needed. Sarah stood near the cabins with the other women and children, her eyes sharp with protective fury. Then the sound came. Hoofbeats, metal, marching, her past riding straight toward her. 12 soldiers appeared at the tree line, their blue coats dusty from the long climb. They were tired, annoyed, and clearly uncomfortable in the rugged terrain. But none of them unsettled Clarabeth as much as the man riding at the front, Jacob Morrison. Her father. He looked exactly as she remembered. Harsh eyes, black beard, back stiff with cruelty. His gaze swept the valley with disgust, then locked on her with a look of sick pride, as if he had finally cornered a wild animal he once cast away. He didn't speak to her. He didn't even acknowledge her humanity. He pointed at Clarabeth while addressing the sergeant beside him. "You see," he barked, "there she is, my daughter. These savages stole her. She's my property, and I demand you retrieve her at once." Property. The word echoed through Clarabeth's bones like a cold slap. Caleb tensed beside her, but she pressed her fingers lightly to his arm. "No," she whispered. "Let me." She stepped forward, one small woman facing an entire military patrol. The soldiers shifted uncomfortably. None of them saw a captive. They saw a calm, steady woman standing beside a community that clearly cared for her. Clarabeth met her father's eyes without a single flinch. "I am not your property, Jacob Morrison," she said, her voice clear and strong. "You sold me 3 horses, a crate of meat, and $2 silver. That was what my life was worth to you." A quiet ripple went through the soldiers. Jacob's face twisted with rage. "Lies! Witchcraft! They have poisoned your mind." "My mind is finally my own," she said softly. Jacob struggled, reaching for anger like a weapon. "You're coming home with me. I'll drag you if I must." "You will not touch her," Caleb said, stepping beside his wife. His tone was low, calm, but deadly certain. The sergeant turned his horse toward Jacob. "Sir, it's clear this woman is here by her own will. The United States Army will not force a married woman from her home." Quote. Jacob's mouth opened and shut like a man drowning. He had lost the moment, lost the power, lost the story. Sarah stepped forward. "She saved my nephew's life," she said. "This valley breathes easier because of her." Old Samuel spoke next. "She is no captive. She is a blessing to our people." One by one, voices rose. Simple truths, small kindnesses, the pieces of a life Clarabeth had built with gentle hands. Jacob had nothing to fight against them but hate. And hate was powerless here. The sergeant straightened in his saddle. "We're leaving." Now. A final, burning look flashed across her father's face. Hatred, fear, and defeat all tangled together. But to Clarabeth, he was no longer a monster. He was only a small man who had lost control of the thing he once used to feel powerful. He turned his horse without another word. And just like that, the last ghost of her past disappeared into the trees. When the soldiers were gone, Caleb pulled Clarabeth into his arms. His embrace was strong and warm, grounding her into a world she had fought to belong to. "You faced him without fear," he said. "I've never been prouder." "I'm free now," she whispered, "truly free." The valley closed around them, offering quiet congratulations, soft smiles, and silent respect. Life slowly returned to its gentle rhythm over the next days. But something inside Clarabeth had changed. She no longer felt like a ghost wandering through borrowed days. She felt alive, rooted, whole. Winter came early that year, painting the valley in white. Clarabeth and Caleb spent long evenings by the fire, sharing stories and warm blankets. The cabin echoed with laughter, a sound she never imagined she could create. When spring arrived, Clarabeth began to feel a new kind of fluttering inside her, a quiet whisper of life. One morning, while tending her garden, she froze. A warm wave of certainty washed over her. Her hands covered her stomach. Her breath caught. A child, a new beginning growing inside her. That evening, she called Caleb to the garden. She didn't speak. She took his hand and gently placed it over her belly. Caleb stilled. Then his eyes filled with joy so pure it brought tears to her own. "Snow Angel," he whispered, kneeling in front of her. "You carry our future." Word spread through the valley. Sarah hugged her tightly, crying happy tears. The elders smiled with pride. The children danced around her garden. The valley celebrated not just a baby, but a miracle. Clarabeth had once been sold as something shameful. Now she was cherished as something sacred. Months passed. Her belly grew, and the home she shared with Caleb grew warmer every day. The mountains protected them like ancient guardians. The community embraced her like family. One night, under a full moon, Caleb wrapped his arms around her as they stood outside their cabin. The soft wind moved through the trees, carrying scents of pine and spring flowers. "Do you ever think about the past?" he asked gently. Clarabeth leaned her head against his chest. "It feels like another lifetime," she said. "I was a ghost then. You gave me a life, a name, a home." Caleb kissed her forehead. "You were always meant to be someone's blessing," he said. "I just had the honor of being the one who saw it." Clarabeth looked out across the valley, her valley, as her child moved gently within her. She realized something then. What her father called a curse. What her town called a shame. What strangers whispered about her pale skin and strange eyes. It had all been wrong. She had not been born cursed. She had been born rare, born strong, born to bring life into a place that needed her as much as she needed it. Caleb tightened his arms around her. "My snow angel," he whispered, "you were never a burden, you were a gift." And for the first time in her life, Clarabeth believed it. She had come to the mountains as something sold, but she had become something priceless. A wife, a healer, a mother, a miracle, a goddess in the eyes of the man who loved her.